In this short video, I'm going to talk to you about how we use Java to create a custom class. And by the end of this session, you'll be able to create a new Java class with constructors. You'll be able to build class and instance methods. You'll be able to instantiate an object from a class, and you'll be able to call methods and getters and setters from the rest of your program. One of the key concepts of object-oriented programming is encapsulation. And that means that all the information and behaviour for your object is stored inside it. And the only way to manipulate this information is through behaviours. The key here is there's no direct access to the data within the object. And this term is called encapsulation. And we create behaviours to act as a filter between the outside world and our class. So we can vet information that's been sent to it to make sure it's valid and return the correct information. And the idea is that the behaviours change the information stored inside the object, the internal information. Now, if you think about it as in the diagram that I'm showing you, you can see the attributes, otherwise the attributes which are often variables, are hidden from the outside world. To change those attributes, we have to call methods or operations. So the methods and operations are the gatekeepers to the attributes or variables. Now, when we create a class in Java, there are several key parts to this. If you look at a Java class, you can break the Java class down into 5 different sections. Normally at the top of the class, you'll see the private attributes. Underneath that, we'll have some constructors. That will be followed by getters and setters, and then we'll have our public methods and our private methods at the end. So to create a new class, the best way to create a new class is to right-click where shown and choose New Java Class from the context menu. You'll need to give your class a name, and it's always a good idea to start your class names with capital letters to differentiate them from instance variables. And once you've done that, you will see that it's created a new file, and in the file it has your package name, because that's where you right-clicked, and it has public class and the name of your class. And what I've done, I've added comments to show where we're going to place each of the different parts of our Java class. So if we're going to have a book class, it would make sense to create some private instance variables to store key information. So in this example, I'm creating 2 strings and an integer. And as you can see, I've marked them as private, and that's very important. If I don't put that private keyword in front, they become public, and that breaks the encapsulation. Now, what we need to do is we need to allow access to those private instance variables. And the easiest way is to create a getter and a setter. A getter, as you can see from the example, returns the value, and a setter assigns a new value to that private instance variable. So if I was to test this, I would say book equals new book. I could then say book.setTitle, that's called in the setter, and I can assign a value to the title private instance variable. And to retrieve the value, I can say string title equals book.getTitle. So I've got getTitle and I've got setTitle to adjust and to retrieve the value of the title variable. The next thing we're going to look at are constructors. Now, when we create our new object from our class, we call a constructor. And if we don't define our own constructor, it has a constructor it inherits from its superclass. So what we've done here, we've created a special constructor which takes 3 parameters. So when I create my object, I can pass it 3 parameters, and it assigns those values to the private instance variables. So I can now create a new object and assign values to it all in the same line. So you can see book1 equals new book, and I'm passing it the title, the author, and the ISBN number. Okay, and I'm logging I'm now logging my new book. So as you can see, I'm trying to log my object, but when I try and log my object, all I get out is the memory address of where the object is stored. If I want to display the contents of my object, I need to override a special method called toString. So when I override the toString method, I can define what's going to get printed when I try and print a variable to logcat. So what I've done in this example here, I've created a special method called toString which overrides the default one as part of the superclass. As you can see, toString doesn't take any parameters, but it returns a string. And as you can see, in my method, I'm defining what's going to get returned in that string. The final thing I'm going to talk about are class methods. A class method is called from the class rather than from the instance variable. An instance method is called from the object. A class method is called from the class. So what I'm going to do is give you an example of how we can use a class method to create a new book from our book class. Now, if you look at the class method syntax, you can see I've put a special word static in my. I've added a static. As you can see, for a class method, I've added a static keyword, which makes it a class method. And my class method is going to return a book object, and the method is called makeBook. So as you can see, I've got a method in my class which returns an instance of that class, and that's quite common. And as you can see, in my class method, I'm calling the constructor, and I'm returning the book I've just created. So that sounds a bit strange, but when you look at how it works, it makes a bit more sense. So the syntax now is book2 equals book. You can see I'm using the class there, the book class, dot makeBook. Now a class method is called from the class, and because it's called from the class, it doesn't have access to any of the instance variables, and that's why I've had to call the constructor from within my class method to create a new book.